Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Kemet podcast brought to you by the Kemetic Means of Production. I'm your host, Robert Bishora. Today's guest is so special that I changed the show's format. The title for today's episode is Getting Elevated with He Valencia, because that's what we will be doing. So mind you, I'm already at 7,000 feet above sea level, so I'm quite already elevated. Welcome, brother, to the podcast. So shall we elevate further?
Yeah, what's up? What's up? What's up? I'm pretty elevated like a nimbus.
So I'm very excited. Let me start off with a very basic question. So first of all, who is He Valencia and what is MoMA PS5?
Oh, so I mean, He Valencia is just my DJ name, just the random name. There's really not that much of a deep meaning behind it. I just like put the words together when I was choosing like my DJ producer name. And then MoMA PS5 is just like this weird beast, like chimera, like a mutant of like all my thoughts put into one platform. And that's just sort of like my media platform where I just like talk about culture. It's just like cultural criticism from a street level. You just talk shit.
Speaking of which, you do wear many hats. You're a DJ, a cultural critic, a fashionista. Did I miss anything?
Yeah, that or like a historian, everything.
A
Yeah, pretty
historian.
much.
So is there any like conceptual continuity to the things that you do? All these things,
Uh
how do you tie them together?
yeah, I would say it's basically just trying to shorten the line between culture. So because I'm interested in the world as a whole, I'm interested in people. So I figure how can I like communicate with as many different people and cultures as I can. So I just try to like shorten the line. So that's why I'm just like jumping from music to doing podcasts or video media or whatever. Like to me, it's all the same thing. You're just like trying to communicate a message to people and have a dialogue back and forth.
So I know you just finished touring the world. Frank Zappa famously said, touring can make you crazy. So tell us about your tour. Any favorite moments from the tour?
Yeah, it definitely can. So the number one thing that I'm learning is like you gotta have a lot of discipline. Like, unfortunately, when you're touring, you can't really party and stuff. You have to immediately
Mm,
like, go
right,
to
right.
sleep after gigs because you gotta get prepared for the next one. But I mean, I would say like honestly, I don't know. I've seen a lot of crazy stuff. I mean, I'm literally playing in clubs with like dark rooms where anything goes. But I
Hmm.
would, but to me, like the craziest thing,
Like eyes wide shut type of scenario or
yeah, or even like the first Blade film where like the blood
okay.
red,
I
yeah,
love
like
that.
just like turn it up by like 50 notches, like that sort of thing. Basically, don't ask, don't tell type situation. If you know, you know. If you don't, you
If you
don't
know,
know.
you know.
Yeah. But honestly, the craziest thing to me is just like sitting on a plane. Every time I be on a plane, I sit on a plane, I'll be like, wow, people actually pay me to DJ. Like people pay me, they put me on a plane to go
It's
play
beautiful.
music for them. I'm like, that's wild. Like,
The fact, I'm working on a book right now on this Egyptian filmmaker called Yusuf Shaheen. And he he interviewed this philosopher once and asked him, "Do you dance?" And the philosopher was kind of offended by the question, and he's like, "Why do you ask me that?" He's like, "Because how can you say you're a philosopher and write about happiness and how to be happy if you don't dance and if you don't enjoy dancing? And your
yeah,
job is to make people dance, which is like
literally.
the most one of the most enjoyable things about being alive, to celebrate life."
Yeah. And it's like one of the probably the most ancient form of like how humans I don't know, communicate. Cause I think of like dance and drums as like the most basic bare bones way humans have like historically like communicated with each other or just like have fun and leisure. It's very like bare bones, you know, and the fact
Absolutely.
that that sort of thread of culture can still like weave itself throughout thousands of years.
Right.
It's literally the
So
same
this
thing.
kind of suggests that there's a spiritual dimension to what you do, right?
Yeah,
So you're like
absolutely.
a
Oh, of
shaman
course.
of sorts.
Absolutely, of course. Oh, definitely. I definitely lean heavily into like the spiritual element. of it. Because I mean, there's just things that like maybe this is not very materialist of me, but I feel like there are things that exist in the humankind that we necessarily can't explain, but they just flow in like a good or positive way. But that's just like the optimist in me. I'm like a natural optimist. Like I look at a
Mm,
situation and try to figure out the best way out. Like it's hard for me to be like very pessimist about things, even though my jokes are very pessimistic.
right, right. Well, I mean, you make people dance, you celebrate life, you enjoy life. And so that's kind of the heart of your being. If, I feel like you wouldn't be optimistic if you didn't do that,
Yeah,
right?
for sure. Exactly.
So, you're a very talented DJ. I actually listened to two of your sets before this interview. Super funny internet personality. I enjoy your online presence because you bring a transgressive comedic quality to online leftist discourse, which I think is missing. And I value your
Yeah.
voice and style in that regard.
I like that you bring up like transgressive because
Yeah,
my main point of reference outside of music, I've always just really been into like comedians and what they do. So I use them as inspiration. You know, I would grow up watching like BET Comic View or like Martin Lawrence, even Dave Chappelle. It's just like wow, these like the fact that like these people they're just sitting like just saying whatever they
right.
want,
Free
but so
associating.
but they're
Yeah,
so but it's like it's saying whatever but also analyzing the world like it's so sharp
absolutely.
because I always feel like comedians are literally like the most politically literate people in the world
Right.
because they can see things for what it is instead of giving us like these long-winded academic explanations,
Right.
which
So
is
it's kind of
important sometimes.
like a critique of ideology of sorts, right?
Yeah,
So sort of like the court jester historically, right? Someone that makes fun of the king, but does it in such a way that the king doesn't get it. It's a joke, but at the end of the there's like a subtext to it where he's like making fun of the king at the same time.
yeah,
Yeah. So I interviewed our common friend John O'Millo not long ago, and I asked him about
nice.
the alt woke label and what it means. Both of you have it as a hashtag in your bios, so please tell us a bit about that. It's something I'm curious about.
Yeah, so I use the hashtag because it's actually there's a manifesto called the Alt Woke Manifesto. I think it was published in like maybe 2016 or 2017, like right when we were like in the vortex of like Hillary versus Trump
Mm,
presidency and like when everybody was like deep in like the pussy hat era. Basically, what the Alt Woke Manifesto was like, it's basically a critique on the oncoming neoliberalism that was like um basically like appropriating like leftist terms like prison abolition and stuff or even like representation and what the Alt Woke Manifesto basically they predicted like the reaction to woke culture before it happened years later from a leftist standpoint, and so they
mm,
wrote a manifesto against it saying that like yeah culture is going to go into this weird woke phase and we have to like remain like a more class oriented or maybe future oriented view of things so like the elite don't capture it, and that's
mm,
why I put it in the bio because like I was basically feeling a bit like burnt out from I guess like establishment culture
yeah,
and I started flirting with like accelerationism and things like that and found out Alt Woke Manifesto. So yeah, basically
because you talk about like
philosophy.
rainbow capitalism. So is your critique of like liberal woke culture is associated with rainbow capitalism specifically, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. And Alt Woke also hit on rainbow capitalism. They in the manifesto they literally talked about like Jaden Smith being the face of I think it was like Chanel or Louis Vuitton at the time. And I was
Mm,
like, oh yeah, I get it now. Yeah, it's like a contemporary critique on like using people of color as tokens for
mm.
diversity. Boom, boom, boom. That thing.
Right. But it still, I guess, has a dimension of critical consciousness. So that's why you were talking about like the class aspect of it. So it still has kind of maybe a Marxist perspective or something like or
Yeah,
post-Marxist.
exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about music a bit. What's up with I'm asking you as an expert, the techno house divide. What is that about? Because that's obviously a big
Yeah.
one.
So you know what's crazy is like being from the Midwest, we're socialized to hear house and techno in the same set in the same club. Because I mean, the distance between house and techno is literally 400 miles, like
Right.
geographically. Because we got
Chicago,
Chicago,
Detroit.
yeah, and then Detroit. So like
Yeah.
people from Detroit, they were always interacting with Chicago and exchanging music and records. And Detroit techno wouldn't have been born if it weren't for Chicago house. So like when I was first hearing people DJ, you play house with techno. But I guess when stuff like went over into Europe, um, like I guess because of this kind of like Eurocentrism sort of
Yeah.
mindset, they basically like separated the art forms as two. And like over the past 20 years, like techno DJs don't play house and house DJs don't play
Right.
techno. And I'm just like, no,
It's
the whole point is
politicized.
to, yeah. And I'm just like, no, you guys, you like defeating the whole point. You're creating like
Right.
these boxes for music.
So you're
So now,
for the connections at the roots between the two.
yeah, because I always say house and techno, the line is shorter than you think. Some people they're under the impression that it's far, and I'm just like, nah. So like my DJ sets, um, I try to reflect that. Like I'm obsessed with like trying to find that middle ground between
Mm,
contemporary house and techno, basically like that gray area that can make records speak to each other.
nice. So where the audience wouldn't even tell the difference whether this is techno or house, they would be confused. Is this techno? Is this house? I'm not sure.
Yeah,
Right? Kind
exactly.
of like that.
Yeah,
That's cool.
make a house record sound like techno, or you can play a techno record to make it sound like house. Like there's
Right.
ways to play this music to make it fit within like any sort of context. And that's how I learned how to DJ was from like mentors who had that style.
Nice. So growing up in Cairo, one song that left a big impression on me was "Push the Feeling" by Nightcrawlers. For many years, I couldn't find it because I didn't know the names of the song or the artists. But
But
my wife solved the riddle a few years ago. What do you think of that record? I'm kind of obsessed with it.
oh, it's a perfect record. It's like one of my favorite, I would say probably like top 5 house records of all time. Yeah,
Yeah,
with like the organ from like Mark Kinchin.
yeah.
Yeah. Do you know the history of that
No,
record? Oh,
please
so
break it
like
down.
wow. So like Mark Kinchin, he's a house producer that was born in Detroit, and then he moved to New York City in the mid 90s to like work for record labels. And like Mark Kinchin got famous because like basically he works for the big, so like in the 90s big record labels, they would always have house remixes on all the
Hmm,
artists no matter what genre, because like house was just as big at the time. So
right.
like any pop single you buy from the 90s, you flip it over, you'll get a house remix.
Hmm,
So like Mark Kinchin, he got famous in New York City by remixing for these big labels. And so Push the Feeling On by Nightcrawlers was like the track that he remixed that put him into like superstardom
wow.
overseas, because I believe that Nightcrawler song, it's from the UK, and it got famous in the UK. And so like
Right.
that specific sound, like on the track, like you know the organ that like people in the UK, they're so obsessed with that track that they
Right.
kept sampling it, and then like you get like a form of like garage house that's
Right.
born in the UK using like this specific like this organ. Yeah, that record pulled him into superstardom, and he like he made a living like in the 90s. You could make a living, a lot of
Yeah.
money just remixing
Just remixing.
tracks.
If it becomes a
And
huge hit.
yeah, and
There
he
was a recent
basically,
remix too, right? Like a few years ago
yeah, and it
from
like
Africa.
reissued it.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
it was pretty good. So not many people know the roots of electronic music, being in classical music. And one of the very early pioneers of electronic music is actually an Egyptian composer by the name of Halim al-Daba. I say that because most people associate classical music with European composers, but that's not necessarily the case. So here's an interesting question: what's your relationship with Dr. Umar Johnson?
Wow. I don't to be honest, I don't even know how I found out about him. I think it was just like because I feel like when you first get into like as a black person, when you first get into like more progressive politics, well, at least in like America, like you get like basically it starts from just like very like pork chop black nationalism,
Right.
and most people sort of get stuck in that, and they don't really look around more. They don't engage with like Dubois
Right.
or stuff. They usually get in via like Garveyism.
Pan Africanism, negritude,
Yeah,
all of that.
and just kind of like float around in those realms, talking about pyramids and
Right.
monks and stuff. So I've known about like Umar Johnson from that era, but like when I started getting more into like socialist nationalism, whatever, I was like, oh, okay, well, goodbye. That stuff, like peace out. And so
But you had a funny encounter with him, right?
yeah, so like I actually got a chance to meet him like after making jokes about him and whatnot for years, because he came to my city and did a talk, and like my sister, she made like the artwork for
Oh wow.
the event. But this is the crazy part. So like when she made the artwork for the event, they wanted like black figures from history. So I
Yeah.
was just like, do posters with like Audre Lorde on it, or and like Fred Hampton, and like some other like black women socials, or like Angela Davis and stuff.
Right.
And like when she made some of the more like black feminist ones, they actually told her they weren't going to hang them up, but they accepted like, which is ironic, but they accepted like the Black Panthers, like they had like Fred Hampton and
Interesting.
Angela Davis, and I'm just like, you morons, those people literally have the same beliefs as like, for the most part, as like these black feminists. I'm just like, yeah, I see what it is. You can like sort of see like the inherent like sexism within that more like
That's
hardcore
interesting.
nationalism.
Right.
Yeah. So I was just like, y'all got it like backwards.
Right.
And
so it's conservative in that sense.
Yeah. So like blah blah blah. We had the event, and then like Umar speaking for like 2 hours. Like he's a very charismatic guy. Like I understand why he has a following. Like he's very good at speaking. It felt like I was in church or something. Like, and his like timing is incredible. He has like very good comedic timing. Knows how to like read the room. And
he's charismatic for sure.
yeah. So like when I was at the event, it was like mad people there. You had like black families. Like it was mad women there, a lot of men. And just like it was really wild hearing him just say like basically like a broken clock is right twice a day. Obviously, I agree with him with like black liberation, but his black liberation comes at the cost of just like excluding people or having like these very like sexist approaches. And I'm just like, dang, dude, I was just like so close, so far.
Right.
He's kind of
you agree on the ends but not the means.
Yeah, at certain points it's making me uncomfortable because I was like, dang, I feel like he's subbing me, like he's talking about me. I'm sitting here in the room. I was like, dang, he calling me names and stuff via his speech.
Right. But he did he call you Rick James or something like that? I remember.
Yeah. So like I was wearing some like silver cowboy boots and some like denim, and he was like, Rick James. And I started laughing.
Rick James is the best.
But he's funny though.
Yeah. So you're a committed anarchist, right? I mean, is that correct?
Yeah.
So you get into these hard hitting debates with Marxist Leninists on Twitter. I've noticed that over the last few years. What's up with that? And why is Marxism, Leninism appealing to many people today, especially younger people? More so than anarchism. And that's my observation. And tell me if you agree with that.
Yeah, it definitely is appealing. So I think because I actually watched this trend happen in real time. I remember on like Left Book or Left Facebook, like a lot of the more hardline Marxist Leninists, they mostly just used to be on Facebook, and they would be in groups of like anarchists just like arguing or like sharing theory. And I just remember at like in like 2018 or something, I think they just started. I think that's when leftist memes started getting popular because of the Bernie. A lot of like the more hardline MLs would start making memes, and I saw it spread to Twitter, and like they all spread to Twitter, and it kind of got like bigger. I was like, oh, okay, I get it, because like they're very good at spreading their propaganda, whereas I find like anarchists to be like a little bit uptight.
Right.
and they only want to post stuff in zines that like nobody can get. I'm just like, like an online
Right.
presence.
Right.
Yeah, so like the MLs, they're very good at propaganda, which makes sense
Right.
because I mean, like historically, what the Soviet Union,
Right.
oh, excellent,
Right.
like posters and
Like
buildings.
I see a lot of these accounts. Like this is a phenomenon that's very popular. Like like accounts of like let's say sexy individuals simping for Stalin or something like that. And you're like, that's so
Yeah,
confusing. It's like cognitive dissonance.
yeah. A lot of
Right?
like the hot girls on Twitter are MLs. Like,
Right.
but it's smart because what they do, they combine like that attention from being hot with like theory. I get it. Like, yo, if you're hot and like an ML, that's so easy to
Right.
build like a
But anarchists
huge
are
following.
failing in that way.
Yeah, because
Right.
we too obsessed with printing shit on paper. Like, come on, like
Right. But you're
stop
kind of
printing
changing
shit.
that. Like you're an exception to that rule because you're doing
Yeah,
it differently.
people just need to be like more creative with their art and propaganda or whatever. Like, it don't you people don't
Right.
have to be so like uptight by the book. I don't know, like get some people rapping about like I don't know, like Rosa Luxemburg or some like
Right.
people are so boring.
So what's the relationship between your, let's say, your political stance, your anarchism, and your artistic style?
um, I think it honestly just comes from when you come up as a teen, especially when you're like really into music, like you have a punk phase. So
Mm,
like when I was a teenager, I had like a punk phase, and you know, with the punk kids, you get introduced to like leftist politics.
right.
So I guess that's sort of like anarcho side stuck, even like aesthetically, like how they will make like the posters and like punk zines. I think it's just like that sort of, I guess you could say
Do it yourself,
rebellious.
right?
Yeah, that DIY, that sort of like attitude. It just stuck. And then I just like sort of apply that punkish thing attitude via different mediums and whatnot.
Right.
Just trying to remix it, the attitude of punk.
Speaking of which, like the band Death, I know you're a fan. I am too.
Oh, I hung out
Um,
with them once.
are you for real?
Yeah,
No way.
yeah. Yeah.
So they are totally underrated because they are in many ways could be considered the founders of punk because
Yeah.
their album it was recorded years before the Sex Pistols and the
Proto
Ramones
punk.
and
Before punk was
the
punk.
Clash, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm obsessed with them.
They're
Obviously the
amazing.
documentary. I forgot how I found out about them, but I have like the stuff
A
on
band called
vinyl.
Death, yeah, the documentary, yeah.
Yeah, so like one of my exes, she actually bought me VIP tickets to one of their shows once in Chicago,
Mm,
and like I got to hang out and like meet them and sit with
sweet.
them. It was sick, yeah. And I like met them and was like hanging out with them before and after. Yeah, they're really really cool. Like
They are
super
amazing,
super humble, got a ton of energy. It's
right?
crazy that they
They're
it
from
took them this
Michigan, right?
long. Yeah, Detroit. It's crazy
Yeah.
that it took them this long to get like big. Like it just goes to show you like people be like ignoring like
There's another artist. Do you remember that film
innovation.
about Rodriguez?
No, what's that?
Searching for Sugar Man. Have you heard of that one?
No.
He's another like underground artist from Michigan who is very good. He's almost like equal to Bob Dylan, if not better. But because he's
Wow.
Hispanic, he never made it, and he had to work like laying bricks and stuff like that. And he got discovered like in the last 10 years, and now he's huge.
That's crazy. I like that you
Yeah.
brought up him being discriminated against on the basis of being Hispanic.
Yep.
I feel like within my realm or field of like house and techno, I feel like a lot of Latinos, specifically within New York house, get overlooked. So like a huge portion of New York house's scene was made by Latinos from
Right.
the Bronx and Brooklyn. Like they had such a huge influence in it, but I feel like it gets a bit like
Right.
whitewashed in the sense of that like liberals are so drunk off like BLM and just like making sure black people get their dues that they forget in the
And even
system
hip hop,
of
I think, has like a Puerto Rican
oh
dimension, right?
yeah, like yo,
Yeah.
the Latinos, there would be
Right.
no rap music without
Right.
like
So it's a
Latinos
big
from the
part, yeah.
Bronx, because you need like every single element to create like the sort of perfect thing. Yeah,
It's a fusion. Yeah.
like kind of maybe that's probably why I'm like kind of getting obsessed with like Brazilian music and stuff because I'm trying to like retrace
Yeah,
and line back to Africa, but taking like
absolutely.
backwards to exit. Yeah.
Speaking of which, I'm actually curious about spiritual or soft community care practices that keep you grounded.
Oh yeah. I mean, obviously, like just prayer, like once a day, whatever, and then just like um, I'd be burning like sage and
Nice.
palo santo, like incense, just to like
To
keep
change the energy of the room, change the
yeah, and
vibes.
then too just to calm down because like it be stanking, just like
Right.
yeah, just to smell good. But definitely like like what's the term that they use? That the Native Americans use when they burn they say is it like dabbing or like I forgot the term, but like basically similar to what they do, like you said, change the energy of a
Right.
room.
Um, who are the artists that excite you today and why? They can be musicians or otherwise.
Um,
Like just the people that come to your mind right away.
okay. Let me find my headphone. I would say like probably JPEG Mafia, um, Earl Sweatshirt, Dean Blunt. There's this techno producer I really like named X Coast.
Hmm.
My friend Jazz, her real name is Sylvia. I'm trying to think of like other artists I really think is dope right now.
In any
Yeah.
field. Could be
Yeah.
fashion, could be film.
Um this is fashion designer I really like named Reese Cooper. He's like this California based designer. All his stuff is just based on like hiking and like he
Hiking.
basically it's like hiking streetwear. It's pretty dope. He makes like really dope
Nice.
boots and like these like baggy cargo pants. Um I'm trying to think of also Errolson Hugh from Acronym. He's dope, like very technical tech wear designer. Honestly, too, I'd be like, I wasn't like the biggest fan when he was alive, but like since he passed, I honestly like obsessively study Virgil Abloh, like what he
Yeah.
said.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was putting the world onto some like next level game.
Yeah. I love the show that he did, that last one, the one in Paris. The design of it was the runaway, the like the rainbow.
Oh yeah, with like
It
the
looked really
gradient.
beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, because he was so good at graphic design. Like he
Yeah.
applied so much heavy graphic design elements to clothing. It was like pretty much unheard of at the time.
Yeah. So for this next section, I'm gonna name 10 electronic music artists, and you'll tell me if you think they're overrated or underrated and why.
Okay.
So disclaimer, I know you're a techno expert. We've established you're a techno slash house expert, but I grew up listening mostly to Eurodance and French house, mainly because of Egypt's, proximity to Europe and,
Yeah,
Mediterranean
France.
culture and all that.
I would say France is just another global South country.
So, okay, ready?
Yeah,
Yellow Magic Orchestra.
definitely not overrated. Legendary, perfect, like perfect music. Yeah,
I love their stuff.
yeah,
Moby.
overrated. Yeah, I appreciate his contributions, but overall overrated.
Yeah. Daft Punk.
Oh, definitely not overrated. Perfect, like legendary status.
Absolutely. Faithless.
um, I wouldn't say overrated. No, it's pretty good. Yeah, like
I love
to
them.
the point. Yeah, to the
Yeah.
point.
Fatboy Slim.
Incredible. Definitely not overrated. Yeah, if Fatboy Slim is what Moby thinks he is, yeah, that level.
Right. Chemical Brothers.
Um, I wouldn't say they're overrated, but I wouldn't put them at the bottom. They like get the
Hmm.
job done. I like the Chemical Brothers. Like they make
Yeah.
good music. Yeah. Like they just like mind their own business and just like drop good projects. Like I
Do you remember that
personally
whole
like them.
period when they were getting these amazing videos out with Michel Gondry and Spike Jones, and like there was a whole period of music videos that was just incredible from like the mid 90s to like 2005 or something like that.
I
A lot of
yeah,
psychedelic stuff.
I really like that era of music videos. I often find
Yeah,
myself just like going down rabbit holes on YouTube, watching the videos.
it was the best. Kraftwerk.
Um, Definitely not overrated. I mean, they're literally like what inspired Detroit people to make techno. So
Right.
if Kraftwerk didn't exist, I don't know if techno would have existed. You never
Check
know.
this out. Boing, boom, chuck. Boing, boom, chuck. Boing, boom, chuck. Chuck, 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 chuck. Do you know that track? I love that one.
Oh,
Massive
yeah.
Attack.
Definitely not overrated. Perfect. Massive Attack is perfect. Like Bristol, any music that comes from Bristol
Yeah.
automatically gonna be legendary. Like it's something about that city.
Unfinished Sympathy is like one of my favorite songs of all time, and that video is one of my favorite videos of all time. It's like one take. It just hits
Oh,
me every
okay.
time. The
Do you like
strings, everything.
do you like Tricky, I assume?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. I love Tricky. It's like dope. I feel like Ooves Tumor is like our modern day Tricky.
yeah. I love that whole scene, trip hop, and
He
so
came back.
Depeche
Trip hop. Yeah.
is back, right?
Yeah, it's
Depeche
back.
Mode.
Not overrated. There, I like Depeche Mode. Like, I love like the sort of '80s EBM
Yeah,
industrial. Yeah,
and they were still able to make good albums even up till recently. So
yeah. They're still
yeah,
touring and everything. Like,
yeah.
yo, to tickets be so. I tried to see them play, and like the tickets sold out fast. I really want to see them, like before they pass, because obviously they're up there in age. Like, I need to see some legends.
And this is the last one. Someone that I think is somewhat legendary but underrated. Egyptian Lover.
Oh yeah, I agree. He's a master of the 808. Like,
Yeah, I
they should
love
be
that
building.
when he.
They should be building statues of him. Like, no, literally, like there should be like. I'm surprised he haven't gotten like a lifetime achievement award by like at like the
Totally underrated.
Grammys or something. Yeah, they should be building statues of him.
Like he is responsible, I think, for a big part for the electro sound, right?
Yeah, that
One of the
80s.
first people to
Because
sample
he was
Kraftwerk,
making
right?
music before. Yeah, he was making music before people in Detroit was. Like,
Yeah.
he's a true innovator.
I always wonder if Egyptian Lover means that he's a lover of Egyptians or if he's an Egyptian that loves. It's kind of an ambiguous name.
I think he's a lover that's Egyptian.
Okay.
Into that 80s like hairspray theme of like
Yeah.
frills like Prince and stuff. Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
very like Prince lover boy sort of name.
So imagine like growing up in Egypt and listening to Egyptian Lover, and I was like, "What? This is amazing!"
That's
Like,
crazy.
yeah,
Dang.
it was wild. Um, so what?
Excuse my ignorance. Is he literally from Egypt
No,
or
I don't think he is. I think he is from LA, but like,
okay?
but
Because I always thought he was like Arab, but he
yeah,
could pass as Arab or Latino.
possibly, yeah. But like the fact that he's called Egyptian Lover, and then he has that famous track called Egypt, Egypt, and I was like, "What? What is this? It's so trippy." So what is the best music video of all time? And don't say Single Ladies.
Oh gosh. I mean, I appreciate the camera on that, but dang, of all time,
Of all time.
that's really hard. Gosh, so many come to mind. Ooh, I'm gonna
If you had
go
to
out.
pick one.
Okay, I'm gonna go out on a wild card. This is one of my favorite music videos. The music video for "Rock with You" by Janet Jackson.
Ooh,
It came out in the early 2000s, and she made like a house single, and like the entire music video is shot in one continuous frame. She's
right.
dancing with a group in like a subway station, and the room constantly changes, and everything is shot in one continuous shot.
It's like one take, huh?
Yeah, the choreography had to be like perfect. It's an
Mm.
incredible music video. I feel like it's underrated, but you should look it up. Like,
I
Rock
do
with
love
You.
those videos where it's one take and it's like technically challenging, right? If you
Yeah,
make a mistake, you have to start from scratch.
exactly. What's your favorite music video?
I think Unfinished Sympathy is one of my favorites of all time. the Massive
Oh.
Attack one, where she's like walking around the streets of LA, and it's all one take, and it's like
Mhm.
super synchronized. She's singing. There are a lot of background action, people crossing, doing crazy stuff, and it's so complex the way it's set up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's one that I go back to a lot. Yeah.
I really like
Um,
music videos where it's shot on the street.
yeah.
This J. Cole, yo, remember the most recent album he dropped? He made a music video for the track called Punching the Clock. It's
Mm,
such a good music video. It's shot in pretty much one continuous shot, but the camera angles switch. And basically what it is, he's standing on the street corner and he catches a cab and he's rapping inside of the cab the whole time for like two
nice.
minutes straight. And
Nice.
the camera is from the front seat. So you see him sitting on the back seat rapping. And then at the end of the music video, he just like leaves the car and gets some food and it ends. It's a perfect music video. I love like stuff shot on the street. Like I like stuff like
Yeah.
Martin Scorsese, like the
Right.
Taxi Driver. Just seeing like New York, and I'm obsessed with cities because it's so
Yeah.
dirty and
Yeah.
just it's like a maze. It doesn't make
You've
sense.
never been to Cairo, right?
No, I want
Yeah,
to
well,
go.
we gotta set it up. I'll be your guy.
Okay. Yeah,
Well, you get to play there and everything, so it'll be fun.
I was following some DJs from the scene there. I was like, dang, I didn't know Egypt had a scene. I'm down to go.
There's definitely a scene, and there's a whole like underground. So the electronic music scene in Egypt is very avant-garde,
Cool.
experimental, and there's a lot of noise, incorporation of like folklore sounds from the country mixed with weird dissonance and all that. So it was fun. Like that's the
Yo, I
stuff
want to
that
go to
I
Egypt now. Like I could
yeah,
go
yeah.
next time I'm in Europe because it's a short flight.
You would love it because I know you're into like the avant-garde and Dada and all of that. So
Yeah.
it's the perfect place for that. It's like chaos theory, you know?
Oh, okay, cool.
So
Damn, I'm
I've
about to
been
like go on Twitter and hit people up now from
yeah, we'll make it work. We'll make it work.
yeah.
Well, I've been very nostalgic lately about 90s music like Sade's No Ordinary Love or Mark Morrison's Return of the Mac.
Turn on the Mac.
What makes a song timeless in your opinion? What is it about that retro sound that makes it so enjoyable?
Most of the like most famous songs that I like or know, they always have a sort of warmth to them, like the way they're engineered or even how like the drums hit because what it is, they capture like a mood or like
Yeah.
an emotion that people are feeling in the world at that time and they bottle it up. Like it's like
Mm,
fishing, you like capture like the perfect bass. That's why I feel like what makes a song timeless. Cause like if you can look at songs from like any era, any genre, and you will listen to it in our present sense and the immediate feeling you'll get, you'll be like, damn, I could tell this is from like 2001 or whatever. It's
yeah.
got like that feeling. Like you could go back and experience that point of history
Yeah.
song. It's like a perfect archive.
Maybe part of it feels that now feels more dystopian than back then, and it's like accessing that moment in time feels like it was a better time somehow, even though that could be completely ideological or a fantasy.
Yeah. Cause we're like stuck in this weird libertarian nightmare that like sci-fi authors predicted centuries ago. Yeah,
Right.
so I get it.
But yeah, Return of the Mac for me, it's like a perfect song. And
I
it's hard to recreate.
I think a perfect song to me is "Can't Get You Out of My Head" by Kylie Minogue.
Mm,
Like that, yeah,
na 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 na
it's
na na na
untouchable.
na. Mm.
Return of the Mac is good, especially like the drums, like the reverb. That
And his voice, right?
even the music video is sick. It's just like the
Yeah,
guitar, just
exactly. But it's
is it
such a
in
good
black and
vibe.
white, right? It's a black and white music
It's
video.
kind of like sepia or something.
Oh, okay. I just remember, yeah, being in like this weird
Yeah, it has a
shade.
weird grade. Yeah, like weird color grade.
That's what we need to
So
bring back. It's like
yeah, we
dirty.
need to the Mac. That we need to bring back the Mac,
Yeah. Dang, that's so
right?
aesthetically pleasing. You should check out this film called Cigarettes and Coffee.
Oh yeah,
It,
Jim
yeah,
Jarmusch.
yeah.
I've
I'm
seen
obsessed
it.
with that film. Like
It's great.
I'm obsessed with the film to the obsessed of trying to like copy the aesthetics. Yeah, I recently saw it for the first time. I was like, what the fuck? I was like, this film is like incredible. I've never
It
seen this
is.
shit before.
He's really good. And clearly, as an independent filmmaker, not limited by like the demands of capitalism or the film
Yeah,
industry. So that's also fascinating for him to create pure art, right? Pure aesthetics.
yeah.
And it's just conversations. Like people just I think they're improvised, right? He just brought people that are cool to talk together and filmed it.
That's why I literally want to do with like the MoMA cast, whatever. I just like talk to people. It's just literally what I do when I'm not DJing. Like whenever I go DJ and travel, like when I'm not playing, I just like literally just meet people and speak to them. And I'm like, this
Right.
could literally just be like a whole TV show or something, and like talking at a
Yeah,
coffee shop or something, like on some
absolutely.
entertainment type. That's why I mean, like, you can. There's all types of critiques of like Rogan to be had, but I mean, the thing that I love most about him, he will literally like the way he just speaks to anyone. It's like, damn, we don't even have like a fucking like leftist or person that's cool. Like, I mean, like you have like Hassan Piker, but he's not like interviewing a new person every episode. Like,
Right,
like I was like, damn, like Joe Rogan, he just be speaking. He'll speak to anybody. That's wild to me.
right. Like Mark Moran, I guess the one that comes close to that, but he doesn't do video, it's just audio, right? Like for
Oh,
podcasts.
okay. Or even like
Uh,
Lex Friedman or something.
or Lex Friedman. But there's something actually about the aesthetic of the Joe Rogan podcast that looks interesting, right? Like
That shit
the
looks
just
like
the way the room, yeah, that setting.
that shit look like they inside of a Joe's Crab Shack. Like that's why it's so relatable. It looked like you sitting inside of a bar with somebody.
Yeah,
Like they got like the wood on the wall and like the neon sign. Yeah, that's why it's probably so relatable. I feel like you sitting in a bar. Like,
yeah. He had a funny story of like he did this interview with Mike Tyson and he was so intimidated because he was so close to him and he was afraid. And so he decided to create this table that would be so big so that it would separate him from the people he's interviewing so that nothing bad would happen.
oh wow, that makes sense. That table is huge.
It's huge. So there's
He
more,
just be
yeah, more space. Yeah.
he just be sitting on the other side of the room, just like yelling at the guests, like house party or something. That's crazy that Joe is afraid of Mike Tyson because like Mike
Who
is a
wouldn't be
nice
though?
dude. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Like you don't want him upset at you, basically. I mean, you could say the wrong thing. It would trigger Mike.
Kind of like that guy he beat up on the plane a few months ago.
Right, right. So that's funny too, how that could change the show. Like literally the table that separates him from the people he's interviewing, right? Um,
Ah,
um so let's talk about cancel culture. What do you
yeah.
think? Because some say does it exist? Others claim it's everywhere. What are your thoughts as someone that pushes the limit? When we talked about push the limit earlier,
Mhm.
right?
I think it does um exist in the sense of like it comes in waves. So like before like this new wave or the current wave of like cancel culture,
Yeah.
people weren't for the most part like trying to socially ostracize folks for a bit. And then I just remember this coming out of nowhere. And I feel like it's a result of like culture becoming reactionary. You see it like bubble up at a certain point. And
Yeah.
like to me, cancel culture is just a natural consequence of like culture shifting more rightward and like authoritarian because like people don't want to speak so they immediately like shut stuff out, so like it's becoming like reactionary. You could kind of see analogs in maybe like the late 80s when you had like the weird like culture scares and like the rise of just like more evangelical
Right.
stuff. So I think like cancel culture is real, but it comes in waves. And those
Right.
waves are like,
The phrase is new, but the phenomenon is not new.
yeah, exactly.
I was rewatching Edward Scissorhands the other day, and I concluded that that film is about cancel culture, like the way they
Wow.
deal with him and the way he gets banished by everyone. Like basically, he gets canceled, and he has to retreat to
Damn.
his castle, right?
That's true as fuck. Or even like the Grinch.
Right.
Like, dang, that
Isn't that
makes
interesting?
perfect sense.
Yeah.
Dang, that makes perfect sense now. Like the Grinch is basically just like socially ostracized and then just
Right.
like retreated. Ah,
The
okay.
people we cancel Edward Scissorhands, the Grinches, right?
Oh, that makes perfect sense. Or even like
So
witches.
the
Like
people that are kind of challenging the norm or the hegemony,
that makes sense because it makes me think of Nina Simone.
outsiders.
Like, yeah, people was calling her crazy, and like all she was doing was just like challenging like the music world, the traditional music, classical music world as is. And like now people call her a genius, but like when she was alive,
Right.
half the people who call her a genius now would probably be like, "Oh, this woman is crazy" or whatever,
Mm,
you know?
right. That's something that's quite unfortunate, right? Like when the genius is appreciated. I mean, that's kind of the Van Gogh phenomenon. Like Van Gogh
Yeah,
wasn't able to sell any paintings while he was alive, and then now, like his work is very expensive. It's all over the world, but he didn't get to enjoy that, and that
it's
sucks,
true.
right?
Yeah, because usually the artists they would be like so ill and just be selling stuff for cheap just to get by.
Right. The struggling artist. So do you feel there's something we didn't get to that you want to talk about?
Um, yeah, I want to talk about like the rise of like Curryism, like how like Tommy Curry, like Dr. Tommy Curry. I remember people was like hating on him. Now I'm seeing
Yeah,
so many people like being like, you know what, you're right, and I'm going to back this
right.
position. It's been wild to see that sort of happen, like the past year and a half with his positions
Yeah.
on like black male pathology. I'm like, dang,
Well, I think actually we got to become friends online through him because we it's like we're in that circle, right?
yeah, the
And
Curryites.
yeah, the Curryites. I'm a huge fan, as you probably know. And he's a good friend of mine. This man. I mean, speaking of genius, we were just talking about Nina Simone, right? Being a genius. I see
Yeah,
this man like obviously that he gets attacked, and most of the people that attack him don't even read him.
at all.
It's a
They
total
wouldn't agree with him.
it's a total just like knee-jerk reaction. But if you meet this man, he's like one of the most kind-hearted individuals you'll ever meet. And then if you speak with him, he's one of the most intelligent individuals you'll ever meet.
I've never seen him angry. I'm fascinated by that. Like, this man is a stoic.
Yeah,
Like, I've never seen like even when people try to fight him, I've never seen like them pull emotion out of him. Like
right.
he's always very like
He has a background
very
in being
calm.
a debater, and he won many awards. So like that's his the grounding is like actually winning debates and how to argue and all that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he's
Yeah,
so stoic. I was like,
yeah,
dang, like this dude is like a castle wall. Like everybody's just like shooting arrows at it
yeah.
and like throwing like flying balls and like
There's a video of him like from like maybe 10, 15 years ago where he's debating and he's speaking so fast. It's unbelievable.
oh
Like
wow.
speaking really well, but really fast and making arguments, and it's incredible.
Interesting. Sick. I'm definitely gonna have to learn how to argue more from him. That's what I'll be getting.
Yeah, yeah. So he's yeah, I mean, I think he's been consistent and just sticking to um grounding his arguments in empirical data and not just like BSing, right? And so
Yeah, for
that's
sure.
why he's appealing to a lot of people who one relate to what he's talking about on a personal level, but then two, so it's validating in that sense, but also there's actually a whole research methodology and a field of study. So it's more than just phenomenology or a feeling. It's actually a whole area of inquiry.
Yeah, for sure. It's a shame that he had to move all the way to was it Scotland?
Scotland, yeah,
Yeah,
University
just
of
to
Edinburgh.
establish and see you. It goes back to like the sort of debates we have with
Well,
like
speaking of
cancel
cancel
culture, where
culture,
it's just
right?
like they really tried to just like shift him out of the academy, and he had to like go elsewhere to build
He was
his
receiving death
study.
threats like crazy. So he couldn't even walk around campus in Texas without being escorted by the police.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So So he's in Scotland now, and he's very much appreciated and respected, and the culture is very different. I mean, it's still, there's still the colonial uh, history, there's still Eurocentrism and all of that, but he talks about it as there's an intellectual kind of environment where you can say things that make people feel uncomfortable, they still can deal with it,
Yeah, for sure.
Whereas in the US, it gets super emotional and divisive, and
And people try to dogpile you.
yeah.
I watched that on Twitter. Like, it's so dumb. I literally just watched like certain camps of people. They'll just like try to dogpile me, and I'm just like, you guys are literally sitting in a group chat and just like doing this just to.
And like, what are their contributions? You are someone who is contributing to the culture, who's doing something that's making people enjoy life more,
Yeah,
and that's important, right? A lot of these people could be jealous or envious of what you're doing.
that's
And
mega true.
So anyways, thank you so much, He Valencia slash Momo PS5 slash Aloysius Wilmoth. I really appreciate your taking the time for this interview, and I hope
We've been trying
you
to
got
get this
something out of it.
in.
I
I've been
know.
like running what it is.
You've been
I've just
touring,
been
yeah.
running
Yeah.
around too much. It was like relatively unorganized. So like now I'm like anchored a bit. Yeah,
Yeah.
just was figuring out the formula.
And hopefully we'll get to hang out at some point in person. And I would love for you to go to Egypt and play there.
Yeah, for sure.
That'll be amazing.
For sure. I'm hyped. Like I'm ready to get out again.